is Will Ringland. I am Epic's accessibility lead. You might be familiar with Epic as the software development company behind tools like MyChart that you may use for your patient portal for your healthcare. I'm here to talk through accessibility at Epic and the telehealth functionality itself. We'll spend a fair amount of time talking about how accessibility tools, interactions, and that sort of thing work with our software, just to give you a sense of what features are available for you to make your experience that much better within the software. So we'll start off with a little bit about Epic. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but I'll give you a little bit about the company as a whole, where we started, where we're going, who I am, and what my job at Epic is specifically. We'll talk about our approach to accessible design and development very briefly, and talk through how we build our software in a way that simplifies the overall accessibility experience and ensures that your experience is simple as possible. The third section, we'll talk through telehealth. We'll go through features just so folks are aware of what is actually available within the software. And then after that, we're going to take a deep dive into iOS accessibility settings and how those interact with MyChart and telehealth in particular. So we'll probably spend most of the time on those last two topics, but we should have plenty of time for questions at the end. So let's start with Epic and who in the world am I? So I'll say it again, I'm Will Ringland. I'm Epic's accessibility lead. I'm a middle-aged white male with short cropped hair. I'm wearing circular glasses and currently a charcoal gray hoodie with white strings. I have a short cropped beard, but it's Wisconsin winter, so it's a bit fuzzier than it typically is. My skin is very white. It's been winter for months. I haven't seen the outside for an extended period of time. I lost my tan months ago. I've been at Epic for over 20 years at this point, and I think I've actually just crossed the threshold where more than 50% of my career has been spent specifically working on accessibility. I am responsible for creating essentially all of Epic's accessibility procedure and policy from the ground up, which I am extremely proud to say. So that's not something that everybody can say, but I've been here since the beginning. So Epic, if you're not familiar, is a software company located in South Central Wisconsin, Madison, technically Verona, just outside of Madison. The name itself is very important to us. Epics, for folks who have maybe literature degrees or read poetry, an epic is a glorious recounting of a nation's events. So things like the Iliad or the Odyssey are epics. The company was so named because that was the long-term vision really from the beginning, was to create an epic chronicle of a patient's health history over the course of their lifetime. The company started in 1979, so we're nearly hitting 50 years in a couple of years here. Started out with 3.5 employees in the basement of a teeny tiny little school, about 10 miles from where we're currently sitting, with the goal really from the beginning to help try to make the world healthier and to give patients that longitudinal, long-term view of what they're doing. So in the top left corner, you can see that date, so it's 1979, as well as the little brick building. It was a four-square style building with an arrow pointing to a set of bushes. And behind there, kind of hard to see on the slide, is a teeny tiny window where 3.5 people are hiding and diligently working away on the software that ultimately we're going to talk about today. At this point, we are in 9 different countries. We cover a majority of healthcare organizations within the US. And we also have offices in Melbourne, just outside of London, Saudi Arabia, Copenhagen, and a couple of other places within Europe. Our software covers about 325 million patients across the globe, which is just an amazingly huge number. You can see a couple of examples of us saying hello to all of our folks on the screen or in the chat today. There's a teeny tiny little smiley face on a globe in the top right corner of the slide showing roughly where we are in the Midwest, right outside of Chicago by Lake Michigan. So pretty much dead center in the US states. The lower part of the slide has graphics indicating things like clinics and hospitals and other healthcare related buildings, with a list of the types of healthcare organizations that we tend to work with. We started with academic organizations. One of our first customers was the University of Wisconsin-Madison here right at home. But we work with all sorts of organizations at this point, payers, rehab clinics, retail clinics, skilled nursing facilities, independent practices, the list goes on. Now, folks may be familiar with MyChart, but visible on the screen now is a gigantic list of applications that we actually produce. The overall goal, as stated in the top left corner in the white text on a pink background, is to have ultimately one united platform. So the idea here is to have a centralized database where all the information talks to everything and integrates perfectly so that you don't have to worry about losing critical care information while you're going from system to system. Now, while we may produce this myriad 5-column view of application names, we're really going to focus on the patient experience applications. So this is the stuff that you're probably more likely familiar with. So that's applications like MyChart, which is the health portal that we create and that all of our customers employ, and that's how you get access to your medical records from the internet or from your mobile device. We have the bedside component of that, which is the hospital version of that integrated within MyChart as well. We also have a handful of other applications, but we're mostly going to be talking about MyChart and telehealth today. Key to our organization's success is the centralized concept of a health grid. So on screen right now is a grid array organized into sort of a 2x2 or a two-dimensional display with that idea of the patient at the center, at the heart of that health grid. So you can sort of imagine yourself if you're sitting on a plane with arrayed around you all the different kinds of healthcare and contexts that you may interact with. And our desire is to make sure that you, the person, not just your data, is ultimately the core central feature within all of that. So you've got lines out to things like, health systems and medical groups. So if you've got a primary care provider, they have access to your record. They can integrate with they can understand you as a person and all the things that matter to you. Specialties within the same area. So cardiologists, dentists, nephrologists, et cetera. They've got access to our system. They've got that same bird's eye view of your chart and understand you as a person. And that extends all the way through payers, pictured at the left, to life sciences, the bottom left corner, home care, so things like home health and hospice, dialysis, and that sort of thing, as relatively new areas that we're moving into. Located at this bottom center. There's also the social safety net organizations that we talk about. We work with social care organizations, behavioral health organizations, state systems, what have you. And then even things like retail care. So if you go to Walgreens to get a vaccination, that information finds its way back to you as that core patient within your chart, and all that information is interoperable across all the different systems and disciplines within the healthcare system. Ultimately, I feel like this is kind of our major, the secret sauce that really makes Epic work. Having one database with your record in its integrity, with all the information available to support you through your entire life and healthcare journey, so that everybody can really understand you as a person and make sure that they're giving you the best possible care. So we're going to head into our second section of the presentation, which is discussing very briefly our approach to design and development with a specific emphasis on accessibility. Accessibility at Epic really got its legs going at about 2014. So as I noted before, I've been at the company for over 20 years, and I was the person involved since 2014, sort of developing those processes. I personally contend that all of the work that we've done has had some form of accessibility, and it wasn't until 2014 where we really sort of got down and tried to understand what the gaps were. So where before we would focus on things like keyboard accessibility, so making sure that people who have mobility disabilities, or honestly just don't like using mice, can interact with the software safely and effectively and efficiently. But obviously, there's a heck of a lot more to accessibility than just that. And starting around 2014 is really where we took off and started paying attention to a lot more stuff, figuring out our design and development policies around screen reader software, assistive tech integration, photosensitivity, and what have you. So along the way, we've had a number of successes. Visible on screen now are 3 links that I'll drop in the chat at the end of the presentation so folks can read these. Primarily, this is a couple of news articles discussing Chicago Lighthouse. Chicago Lighthouse is a group outside of Chicago that works with the University of Illinois Health Center near Chicago and throughout all of Illinois. They are an advocacy and employment group for people with low or no vision. They work with UI Health specifically to do a lot of their registration and scheduling through our software. So many of those users have no vision and interact solely with our software with a screen reader, but allows them to be just as effective at those jobs as any typical person. We've also got a version of that story that we've got on our own epicshare.com website, which is our research portal for some of the publications that we do as Epic as an organization. Pictured at right is one of the delightful women that I worked with at the at the Chicago Lighthouse while we were doing the implementation around 2018, 2019. She is looking, she has a white cane organized on her desk, and she's on the phone while sitting in front of some of our scheduling software, which is a little bit blurry in this particular photo. But you can read more about that, those links, when I put them in the chat towards the end of the presentation. Ultimately, we achieved that success by working through what are called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG. I'll probably say that word a couple of times today. I'm not going to get into the technical details, but these are essentially global standards on how to approach accessibility to supply a consistent, usable experience for people of all different abilities across the world to ensure that they have access to the software necessary to lead healthy, happy, productive lives in whatever way that they choose or whatever mode suits them the best. The WCAG itself is organized into four grouping principles, POUR for the acronym. All software needs to be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Robust is about working with standards, things like HTML coding in a way that allows other parties to code for the expected standards and allow things like screen readers to interact with software without having to do any extra work on top of it. Technical standards are great, but ultimately we wanted to distill that into something that made sense for the way that we as Epic approach accessibility. Visible on screen now is a series of principles that we use to guide that work sort of as our North Star for design principles and how we approach all of our development. This is sort of like the ethical backbone to accessibility within our system, because it's really not just a set of technical standards, though the WCAG is a very good tool. You still have to consider the human aspects of accessibility because everybody's experience is unique. And while it's great that we can generalize our software to work for as broad an audience as possible, you have to understand that people work in a particular way and everybody's disability experience is very specific. So our first principle is including everyone. Accessible design must be informed by disabled users' real experience. One size ultimately fits one person, and fitting many really requires a strong commitment to inclusivity. Our second principle is building accessible blocks. That's understanding what the smallest component of information or interaction really is for a software and allowing the user to access it in the way that makes the most sense for them. So understanding that, cells are sort of the most atomic unit of information within a table, for example. Third principle is understanding sensing versus acting. This has been a big one for us over the last couple of years in particular, because this is about understanding sensation, perception, interaction, and how all of that can differ depending on what senses you have available to you physically. So this is working with assistive tech to understand that it can stand in both for users' ability to click and type, but also their ability to seek and understand information. Presenting all of the information accurately and efficiently is critical for all users to be able to do their jobs effectively. Our fourth principle is recognizing and addressing bias. All systems are built by people. People have biases. Biases can creep in any number of ways, and it's crucial for us to be aware of that and make sure that we are accounting for it in our processes, be that by having someone in the room whose simple job is to ask, hey, did you think about X thing when you're talking about a particular group of people who need to interact with the software? Or if you're accounting for interesting or problematic coding techniques that could result in data being misconstrued or what have you. And finally, valuing uniqueness. Disabled people aren't uniform, just like any other person. We're all different. Our disabilities affect us in different ways. I myself am an amputee, and my experience is highly different from a person who, say, lost their arm in a car accident because I was born without my arm. I have a different experience, going through the world than that person may have. But ultimately, understanding and valuing that uniqueness, that singularity of people is critical for our ability to make accessible software. The ultimate result doing this, paying attention to standards, working with people, talking about disability and accessibility and all those interaction methods, is that accessibility becomes a lot simpler. It's never easy because people are complex, software technology is complicated, and making sure that we're working from the same standards really is how you ensure that, we're all talking the same language when we're interacting, so that, we as Epic can produce software using these standards. Freedom Scientific, the group that makes JAWS, Job Access with Speech, one of the popular screen readers in the US, they work towards those same standards so that when you, such as you users, are running JAWS, it just seamlessly works with our software. So that results in relatively straightforward things like the MyChart website just working with settings that you've got set every day. On screen right now, I've got an example from one of our testing environments of MyChart in its blue-based theme. Down the central column is a series of cards that have things like video visit information for you, messages from your provider about a recent visit, ways to see that, ways to interact with that, as well as sort of the main menu bars that probably many of you are familiar with at the top of the screen. This is sort of the base form of the software, but say you've got Windows configured to be high contrast mode, the software just continues to work because we've coded everything in a way that understands that that's a preference that we need to account for and can adapt dynamically to it. Similarly with things like zooming and text resizing, visible on screen right now was me scrolling through and then ultimately setting to 225% zoom on my browser, the MyChart website. It's fully responsive. It changes to accommodate those text sizing requirements and is still a delight to use, if I do say so myself. So we'll talk a bit more about the interaction of accessibility settings within MyChart and telehealth applications after this section. But right now, I wanted to pivot and talk a little bit about telehealth itself. I think it's important for everybody on this call to understand what services could be available. I will note that there's differences across organizations. So your Sutters and your Kaisers might both have MyChart and telehealth, but they may be on different versions, therefore have access to different features. So you may find cases where you log into one place and you've got access to one set of features, and then you log into another and it's different. That's not them doing something weird. That's potentially just the software differences across versions, since customers adopted the software at different times, have a different cadence of updates, and what have you. The scope of telehealth functionality is a lot broader than just quote unquote simple clinic visits. Although that's obviously an important part of it. Our telehealth functionality also includes, self-triage capabilities so that if you've got a particular kind of issue, we direct you to the right place, be that a video visit or ultimately to a pharmacist or urgent care or emergency care, if that makes the most sense. There's home device integration and monitoring. So I noted in that health grid that we do have at-home care services and software that we integrate with. So the devices that you may use to monitor particular aspects of your health can synchronize with MyChart, can be used in telehealth and presented to providers when you're having those e-visits. It also allows for things like clinic-to-clinic consultation. Sometimes a specialist isn't in the clinic you're currently at, but they might be rotating rounds through a different location. You can still pull them into a telehealth chat to make sure that you get at the ready most specific care that you could possibly get when you need to. Along with that comes with functions like language and interpretation services. I have a list later on of a couple of the big names within interpretation and ASL interpretation services that we do integrate with, but ultimately we have open APIs that third parties are more than allowed to develop against and interact with. Telepresence and remote monitoring as well. So we use our telehealth software as a way to monitor patients in ICUs so that, even if you're rounding and want to check in on a patient, say on your phone, you can bring up the application and take a look at a patient to make sure that things are good. So ultimately, our development processes and our feature selection is informed similarly by our design and development process in consultation with our community of customers and patients. So we have things like inviting guests when you're going through and doing your scheduling for a video visit directly from the app within like your phone, for example. If you have someone that perhaps helps you in your care, or if you have someone who may speak better the language that you primarily use and can translate for a provider, that's an example of a person that you can bring to make sure that you're getting, top-notch care. Similarly, we have custom waiting rooms set up for a lot of our customers where, they can give you tips on how to use the software itself, give you help with accessibility requirements, otherwise customize the experience in a way that makes the most sense for you and your use case. But it just allows a way to make the experience more personal and potentially answer those questions that you may have really upfront. And obviously the straight up video client. I'll note that there are a couple of different ways that our software can be implemented. So you can use our proprietary Epic Video client. Otherwise, you can integrate with things like Zoom to actually run the video connection. So I'll note that there's potentially some differences in the way that those capabilities work depending on which client the particular provider is using. But generally speaking, the Epic Video Client, is a fully accessible, easy to use experience on any device you may choose. One of the things that we're really big on is getting feedback from users such as yourself. One of the big things is like understanding how the process of using telehealth is. So at the end of a visit, should you so choose, you get a very brief survey to provide information about how that experience went. It can be as specific as, how was the specific registration process? What workflows did you have trouble with? Or sort of a general feedback form, or even just how was the quality of the audio or the video from your experience. That information makes its way back to the customers and ultimately to us as the software developers to make sure that we're providing the best care possible and the best software to support you and your accessibility needs. So simple, straightforward stuff, but one of those ways that we make sure that we're staying in contact, even if it is sort of secondarily with folks who are using the software every day. I'll note that this is not the only way that we interact with folks. We do work with a lot of our customers, especially locally, with their patient, family, and advisory councils. We've been working with groups like the National Federation for the Blind and the Hearing Loss Association of America a lot recently to better inform our design experiences and do things like, A/B user testing, for example, to see which interfaces make the most sense for folks with particular disabilities. Screen sharing, which I'm doing right now through the Zoom client, important feature for telehealth capabilities to make sure that you can show specific things for folks. So pictured on the screen is an example of a provider who's sharing their screen, showing an X-ray so that rather than having to sort of describe the X-ray and what's going on, you can just show it to the person directly and then explain it as you go. So in the same way that I have my screen that I'm sharing my slides with, and you got the chat still available or the video feeds from folks who are from the panelists and the hosts, it all works in a very similar way. It's obviously an important feature. Being able to share X-rays is kind of a big deal, especially if that's why you're having that video visit. I noted before interpretation, just as a couple of examples, this is not an exclusive list, but we integrate with Propio One, Cybercom, Voice, and some other big names in interpretation services. A number of these groups are available directly within our own app marketplace. So the software that we produce works kind of like a platform for other groups to interact with or develop off of. On our website, epic.com/open, I believe is the link. We explain to users how they can build off of existing APIs, all of them based on like federal standards for interoperability. So that again, we can just like get up and get moving immediately and not have to worry about doing like custom development for every single service that may come up. Again, cases where working towards those standards can really produce a significantly more simple experience for everybody, both in the I don't have to develop as complex or specifically tailored software, but also that you can just rest assured that things will just work and it's not going to be a cognitive burden for you to actually get the healthcare that you need. On screen is just a view of what the interpreter structure looks like for providers. It's very important that while you can request interpretation on your side while you're scheduling the video, but the providers also have the capability of ad hoc adding things like interpretation. So this is a glimpse behind the curtain and how our hyperspace application looks. At center, there's a pop-up that's explaining, this particular patient has, these phone numbers, this email, these lists, what kind of language do you need? You can select from a variety of languages. Ultimately, do you need audio or video interpretation, and then send that request ad hoc whenever it's necessary, just as an example. We also offer multiple modes of interaction. Not everybody can speak or chooses to speak or potentially would prefer to use text-based interaction. So we have text chat as one option for folks to interact with providers. It's a different mode. It's not necessarily the same as being able to speak directly, but sometimes it's better for a particular scenario. And that's available in our specific Epic video client. I'll note that the following feature we are working on next is AI generated captions. There's been a lot of work in coming out of the FCC and the other government agencies to make sure that video conferencing like telehealth can be as accessible as possible. So we're making sure that our captioning is clean and functional and quick. And then we'll be looking at integrating with VRS and TRS services in the future. Now we're going to pivot again to this fourth section where we're going to talk specifically about iOS accessibility. More or less everything that I'm going to talk about also exists on Android. It's just easier to go through a single platform. If you have questions about how some of this works, I will try to answer, but I will note that I am an Epic employee, not an Apple employee. I use a lot of these accessibility features myself and can explain them somewhat in detail. But I think it's a good idea to give folks on the call an idea of even what you can do with the devices that you probably already have to make your experience that much nicer and more accessible. It's ultimately about where the rubber meets the road for all of the talk that I'm saying about standards and interoperability and what have you within the software. Because it's all well and good to have to say your software is accessible. It's a whole other thing to actually be accessible. So when we're talking about accessibility settings, this is the literal settings app within an iPhone. So if you've ever tapped on that, you're probably familiar with things like, airplane mode and Wi-Fi interaction and Bluetooth. Well, located in the second grouping of functionality under general but above camera are the accessibility settings. I've highlighted that on the screen right now in this screenshot example that I have of my phone, which was in a dark mode at the time when I was taking these screenshots with the accessibility feature highlighted. So that is your gateway to a lot of these settings. And honestly, I would highly encourage folks to just explore what's there. People often think accessibility is for, other people, not for me. I've got good enough vision. I don't need to have larger text sizes. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the accessibility settings that are just nice to have. I, for example, have reduced transparency enabled for most of my devices because I don't like this weird translucency that seems to be permeating web design. So if you tap on that, you're taken to the landing page for accessibility settings within the iPhone or within iOS. There's at the very top of the screen is general help that Apple offers. They have a lot of documentation for their accessibility features, which again, I highly recommend you take a look at, read through it from their website. Their website is also very accessible. But otherwise, we're going to dig in through the various sections here. So at the top, and probably the stuff that people are most familiar with is sort of vision-based accessibility settings. So primarily, the biggest feature is something called VoiceOver, which is the built-in screen reader tool within iOS. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, and I've got a video and audio example to demonstrate to folks to get an idea of what VoiceOver is like. But it also includes things like zoom, display and text size, some motion-specific settings, how you want the device to adapt to spoken content and how it can provide that to you, as well as other tools around audio descriptions and using some of the new Apple Intelligence tools to take information that it can gather from the screen and offer you a more accessible version of that that otherwise may not be as available if folks may have not the greatest descriptions, for example, of some of the screens that they've got on a web page, as an example. Next up is the motor section. So this is for physical and motor interactions. So, tapping on the screen, navigating websites, navigating controls. There's a bunch of touch specific accommodations that are available. We'll go through a handful of those. There's the Face ID and attention. So you can enable your phone to pay attention to where you're looking at your screen and interact with that using sort of eye control or eye motion and other non-physical interaction ways if you have, say, no fingers to interact with, or some mobility issues that restrict your movement. You can use other tools for that. Similarly, things like voice control, eye tracking, the side button, the big button that used to be the power button on the side of iPhones now is significantly more configurable than it used to be. So the side button can be used to access a number of different features very rapidly if you do have the mobility and want to do that sort of thing. We'll get into a couple of these in a second as well. Next up is hearing. We're not going to talk as much about this one because this is a lot more technical and ultimately requires things like hearing aids. We are going to talk a little bit about subtitles and captioning towards the end of this because I think that's just a good tool for folks to understand exists. Apple is really great about integrating with a lot of modern hearing aid information or hearing aid devices to provide better sound quality to you. And that sort of thing will get piped directly from the device, say if you're in a telehealth video, directly into your hearing aid to make that crystal clear and easy to access. There's a lot of other things for like sound recognition. So your phone can help you identify when something might be a dangerously loud sound. So the decibel levels are high enough that it could potentially cause hearing damage. Useful things like that are kind of a big deal. And then there's real-time typing and telephony interaction and integration. So being able to use some of those tools for hard of hearing folks who may have special devices, special telephones to use a relay service to interact with folks on the outside world. And as noted, there's captioning and subtitles that we'll talk about a little bit more towards the end. And then lastly, but not the last one that we're going to talk about, but there's a handful of other settings that I'll just briefly mention, is the speech section. So this is things like live speech, personal voice, and vocal shortcuts. It is very possible to interact with a lot of your iOS devices using entirely voice. Also, you can use the personal voice functionality. So if you have speech impediments or some sort of speech issues that could potentially get progressively worse, or if you have bad days for like your vocal cords, you can actually teach the phone how to sound like you and to recreate your voice in a way that allows you to continue interacting in a very personalized way. Apple had an interesting commercial for this when they released the feature, and I want to say iOS 16. And then live speech is sort of your typical speech to text interaction. There's additional things for like keyboards and typing. You can connect any number of devices to iOS devices, tablets, phones, what have you. And there's some other like guided access functionality that allows you to more deliberately control interaction from app to app to simplify the experience and that sort of thing. So we'll start with some of the vision capabilities and how those work with the MyChart application. Again, we'll be looking mostly at iPhones, and I'll have a couple of examples of MyChart on an iPhone that I use for to walk through this. Again, Android devices have a lot of these settings as well. We're just not going to go through those specifically. So we're going to start with VoiceOver. VoiceOver is probably one of the more complex tools that is available on the iPhone. So what VoiceOver is allows folks who have low to no vision to interact with software. So where I noted before, Job Access with Speech, JAWS, is a desktop-based screen reader that allows you to take a web page and turn it into an audio-based interaction model. So if you have limited vision and want some additional help, turning that experience into something more audible, VoiceOver is what you're looking for. You have control over things like the speaking rate. So I have a number of blind friends who use JAWS at their non-default rate, and they're speaking at like 2 or 3 times normal human speech, and it's a real interesting experience listening to them and how quickly they can interact with software using the speaking rate. But you have control because if you're just learning, sometimes having to go that fast is not going to be super useful. The VoiceOver controls are also where you can find things like Braille interaction and configure things like voice recognition in context of VoiceOver being on, because if you essentially have 2 voices competing for control of the device, the device itself can be smart to know when it's talking versus when it's hearing someone else talk and differentiate the two. It's an important feature if you've got more voice-based interaction that you're doing while you also need use of the screen reader. So VoiceOver itself is a pretty complex tool. One, you can develop individual commands for it. So that's what is visible on the screen at the far right here is a series of major settings to control the experience of VoiceOver to allow you to customize the software to work the way that you want it to when you're interacting with software, with web pages, what have you. The rotor is a virtualized switch tool. Let's see if I can explain this. So iPhones and a lot of tablets and what have you have multi-finger gestures. So the rotor allows you to select a series of controls to change how VoiceOver navigates. So by default, when you swipe left or right, VoiceOver will advance to the next text bit of the next text and the next button, what have you. You can have the rotor switch say, I only want to navigate through hyperlinks, so that you can sort of turn a virtual rotor. I'm demonstrating turning a knob on the camera, but it's the same idea where you put two fingers down on the screen, and sort of like you're turning a knob, control what the interaction is, so that when you now swipe up or down or left or right, it changes how you're navigating through an activity, and you can speed up to make sure you're getting to things that you care about faster. There's a bunch of different navigation styles and like ways to customize the cursor to make it easier or more obvious for if you have a particular vision disability and you use VoiceOver to help, but you still can follow along and want to be able to see the cursor, for example, to know where you are in context of an application or a video. So I'm going to play a video now. This is an example of a person at my company here interacting with the MyChart software on one of our mobile devices in a test environment. Let me know if you can't hear this audio. I have it connected, so we should be good, but it might be a little subdued.
VoiceOver on. MyChart. Edit organizations. Link. Login. Button. Login. Dim. Welcome Theodore. Menu. Button. Foundation System Stage 1. MyChart is epic. Fun facts about viewing chart for Theodore. Account. Welcome. Theodore. Change your shortcuts. Button. Schedule an appointment. Button. Messages. Button. Visits. Button. Test results. Button. Back. Button. Individual results. Heading level 2. Showing 31 of 31. Individual results. Lab COVID-19 abnormal. Link. List start. January 12, 2000. Doctor. Lab hemoglobin abnormal. Link.
So you can see
MyChart. Test details. Loading. Ellipsis. Hemoglobin. Heading level 1. Main. Landmark. Collected on January 11th, 2023, 1:30 p.m. Ask a question. Button. Results. Heading level 2. Your hemoglobin levels are slightly higher than normal. We will keep an eye on it moving forwards. Hemoglobin. Heading level 3. View hemoglobin trends. Link. Normal range. 13.5 17.5 grams/dl. Your value is 17.7 grams/dl. This value is high. Normal range 13.5 17.5 grams/dl. Image.
So that was the user navigating piece by piece and gets you an idea of like how that experience translates to a more audio specific version of the MyChart application. And again, we get all of that essentially for free by developing to those standards and with those principles that we discussed before. So we're going to talk a little bit about text-based ones. I'm noting that it's about Q2. I want to make sure that we do have time to talk, to ask questions. The next biggest thing that I think most folks are going to be interested in is display and text size. So that's the third option within the vision category. This allows you to change like transparency settings, contrast settings, how certain things sort of invert on the screen if you want to have a different kind of display structure. But the biggest ones are things like making the text bolder or just larger to see. So if you go into that display and text sizing option, you have bold text, larger text, button shapes, and on and off labels. For folks who can see the screen, I do have on and off labels enabled already. You can see the little 0 in the off state for that button, which is a really interesting feature. So if we take a look at an example of the mobile MyChart application, the text is pretty typical. I think our baseline font size is about 13 pixels on iPhones. If I were to turn on bold text, the weight of that text gets a little bit stronger. So everything's a little bit bigger, has higher contrast, is somewhat easier to see. There are additional accessibility like size settings for the text. So I'll note that you can increase the text size to sort of, I think it's 100 up to 150 times its specific size within the base level settings of text sizing. So that will increase the overall text. I will note that the buttons act slightly differently here. So on screen, you can see 6 buttons arranged to the top of the MyChart screen. So getting quick access to things like visits, message, medications. We do increase the size of that with this in the same way, and sometimes the icons as well. But this is very specifically about text sizing and making sure that we're accommodating those larger sizes. There's a larger still accessibility sizes. So if you need even larger text, you can flip a switch within the display and text size settings that allows you to go up to, I want to say 350% zoom. So you can see on the screen now that the text takes up a lot more space, but the interface itself still wraps around to accommodate it without cutting off some of the text information. This is actually a relatively new feature that we've been working with. It has required quite a bit of conversion from our older platforms, but it's been working pretty well for us. There's still things that we could do better, like the buttons, even though they're resizing, the text is still kind of hard to read. We've been having debates whether or not we should remove the icons or the text for whatever makes the most sense in that particular case. If you have thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So next we're going to talk about assistive touch. So this is the first setting available within the physical and motor section of the accessibility settings. So if you hit touch, it'll take you to that screen. Assistive touch is a tool that allows you to have sort of quick access functionality within a little floating button on the screen. If you turn that on, you're allowed to, customize what this particular control does. So if you have trouble, for example, on more modern phones, swiping up to get back to the home screen because there's that little bar at the bottom, and sometimes it's really close to the actual bezel of the phone. So if that's hard for you to do, you can actually make the assistive touch button, like if you tap it, do that gesture for you, or have it open up a series of menus that you can then select what you want to do. This one's especially great with like voice control because you can specifically call out that button, have it open, and then interact with it that way, which I think is a particularly great set of features. So when you access the customized top level menu, there are a couple of default options. Like when you tap on the assistive tech button, it'll open a menu to allow you to get access to the app switcher to take a screenshot, lock the rotation on your phone, and open Control Center as example. I've got an additional option available configured on mine to let me access a shortcut, one of the iOS applications to sort of automate workflows within your tool. So I can tap my button and then immediately enter a task to my task manager, which is pretty cool. The menu essentially looks exactly the same between in-device and in the settings itself. So when you tap the assistive touch button, you get a big square that opens up where that button was and shows you the options that you've selected and configured within the assistive touch menu. So you can have up to, I think, 16 different options from here. So there's a lot of flexibility in what you can get it to do. And lastly, I want to talk about captions and subtitles. This is great to use when there are tools out there that may not be as accessible as, say, our telehealth client that is getting captions. You can have your device essentially do the captioning for you. It's AI generated, so it may not be as accurate, which is not necessarily the best. But ultimately, it's a quick way to get access to audio-based content if you need it in a pinch. You do have full control over it with how it looks on the screen. So similar to how Maura was explaining that you can change the captioning, you can do the same thing on your devices. So I've got an example where I turned my text blue, made it twice as big, and added a purple background for aesthetics. But ultimately, I find that a lot easier to see the blue against the red compared to the default, which is white on black with a fairly high level of transparency. And then my last screenshot is an example of what that looks like when I was watching YouTube with those captions there. So it ultimately takes over the styling for accessible software that otherwise allows full captioning to function. So what would I like you to take away from all of this? Well, one, I want you to take away that we do care about accessibility. It's a journey. Accessibility is never done. It's part of our development process and will be part of our development process forever. It is important to us that we produce software that everybody can use. Standards, working towards the standards so that WCAG stuff that I was talking about at the beginning makes accessibility a lot simpler. So the more that you're working towards standards, the more accessibility you essentially get for free when other people are being good citizens of the technological world and doing the same thing. It makes supporting more people so much more easy across all these platforms because everything is interoperable in modern tech these days. And ultimately, accessibility is agency. The more accessible and usable software is, the more value people can get out of their devices, their interactions, just life in general. I don't think it's too much to say that a good healthcare experience makes your health better and your life better. So if MyChart and telehealth are more accessible to you, hopefully you're getting better care, better able to take care of yourself and have just an overall improved life. Agency is important. It's what keeps us, it's one of the key factors of being a human. If you ultimately have questions, so we've got a couple of minutes to take questions here. You can email accessibility@epic.com and I can try to help you. If you have a particular healthcare organization that you know uses MyChart, please include that information. I can make sure that we're getting you hooked up with the right folks at those organizations to make sure that we're getting you the support you need. But otherwise, we've got some time for questions, I believe.
Does anybody have any questions for Will? Thank you so much, Will. Now would be the time. You can throw them into the chat or the Q&A right now since we're towards the end of our presentation.
I have a question, Will. This is Michelle.
Mhm.
Really quick. In the event that maybe not necessarily for my Epic, but if we're struggling with accessibility for other websites and we're finding that they're not meeting the standard, where would you suggest someone start? Just this is kind of your software world. Like where would they, who handles that within agencies typically? Is it usually an accessibility full department or
So it depends. My interactions, especially in the healthcare realm, there's generally like dedicated accessibility offices. The secret phrasing is like ADA coordinator. They're generally also in charge of website accessibility. I will say that this is kind of a sneaky thing that sometimes is a good way to do it. A lot of places have accessibility at domain.com, and you can actually email that to get access to those people a lot more directly. So obviously, starting with whatever email address you can find on a website is a really great way to do it. And if you're talking about accommodations or the Americans with Disabilities Act, getting coverage and help with that, that's a good way to start a conversation. People will see that and know that this is a serious thing that they should pay attention to.
wonderful? Thank you.
You're getting several praise in the chat if you can't see it. So thank you again for the great presentation. I was very intrigued as well. As they're saying, a lot of us use MyChart.
Yep.
And so knowing the accessibility features of it is great to know. Yeah, lots of praise. I did have a question as well. If somebody has any questions regarding accessibility or how to access the chart and they're on Android, is that something that they can reach out to this email about, or should they go through their provider?
So I would say both. Our healthcare organizations don't generally have specialists on the technology platform themselves, but there's going to be someone who's going to be able to help, especially if there's customizations that they know about that you have to set up on the device for whatever reason. But if you email accessibility at Epic, and we've got 200 and some accessibility experts embedded across applications, someone will be able to answer an Android-based question. Worst case scenario, also you can Google for it. Their documentation is actually pretty good too. But yeah, like accessibility at epic.com is a good place to start. And if it is ultimately something that's organization specific, we're more than happy to help you find the right people to talk to. It goes directly to me and my team, not all 200 people, but my select group of accessibility leadership at the company.
Lovely. Thank you, Will. And if anyone was interested and like they're just wondering if maybe does their provider use the platform on the website that we dropped earlier, and we'll send a link out later. You can always check to see if your provider does use this. Most in California do, so it would be odd and random, but it's a good check anyway, and we can send the link. Does anybody else? Will, did you have anything or any other questions?
I did promise to drop a couple of links, so I'm going to stop my screen
Oh,
share
yes.
and then I'll add those links that I had to the articles about Chicago Lighthouse to the chat so folks can get to that if they're interested.
Lovely. While Will works on those, anyone else have any other questions, burning questions? You can always go to that email if you have any. You can always email us too, and we can kind of send you to that email or answer any questions via this. We will have a follow-up email go out that lets you know when the recording is uploaded, as well as a follow-up little kind of guide, one pager that can help break down this presentation as well. So that'll be coming shortly, end of the week at the latest, I would assume. But yeah, we'll be following up with that. Will's dropping some great links. Go ahead and save those, and I'll follow up in the email as well with those. But let's see, once we get all those links, if anybody doesn't have any questions, I will give you some time back for your day. Maybe get a little 4-minute break before your next meeting. But again, yeah, thank you so much, Will. This was great, very informative. Lots of praise in the chat. I really appreciate you, and I'm sure everyone else who is here does as well.
I'm very glad to help. Have a good day, folks.
Thank you. Have a good one, everyone.